Hey, welcome back to Innovate Africa. This is the home of story, not just any type of story, the stories of innovators who impact lives on the African continent. I'm going to do something to you, and I do apologize. Think about COVID. Think about the suffering. But also, let's talk about the financial challenges that it brought with it. You might not be affected if you're one of the lucky ones, but you probably know someone whose credit record is totally obliterated. And what happens when your credit record is obliterated? You can't buy cars, you can't get anything on credit, even something as simple as renting a vehicle. You need to make sure that you've got a good credit record. So how do you get about if you don't have a car? Well, there's a very clever company. I call them clever because it's the way they do the whole car rental thing. They're called FlexClub. And what they've done, I find it really smart because essentially it's a workaround you not having a good credit record. It still allows you to get access to that vehicle. I'm not going to tell you the whole story. I'm just going to introduce you to one of the co-founders, Idan Jaan. Thank you very much for your time. Great having you on Innovate Africa.
Thanks for having me, Kieno. Long time coming this.
No, indeed. I'm going to dig into your history and all of that.
Sure.
I mean, you're not a first-time entrepreneur. You've successfully built and exited business before. But let's talk about FlexClub first and foremost. What is the purpose of FlexClub? The reason why you get out of bed every morning?
Sure. So I think just kind of like laying the land of what's happening currently in the mobility landscape. If you look at, we always say internally at FlexClub, like we break mobility in time verticals. So if you look at mobility, mobility by the minute, you want to get from A to B. I think the Ubers of the world, the Lyfts, they really solve it well. You want to get from A to B within the next couple of minutes. You go on your phone, you order a cab, and you really, it's quite a seamless journey.
Right.
You break down, the next vertical would be mobility by the day, and we believe the car rental companies have it waxed. You go to the Kruger for a couple of days, you come to Cape Town for a couple of days, you have the likes of Hertz, Avis, Budget. You can really get a car for a couple of days easily. Oh. We don't believe anyone in South Africa has solved mobility by the month. The only players in mobility by the month are the banks. Now, if you kind of dig down and understand what's happening in the bank space, there's currently just under 3 million vehicle finance applications that are being generated every year in South Africa. Only 480,000 vehicles actually get sold.
Wow.
So that means there's a plethora of people out there that are trying to get access to vehicles that aren't getting access to vehicles because of the stringent credit underwriting of the banks. So there has to be some sort of alternative. Now, over the past couple of years, we've seen the likes of this thing called rent to own segment that has been coming out. I will bite my tongue on that whole segment. I believe it's extremely predatory. Guys get access to 10-year-old vehicles. They rent them out for 5 years, only to own the car after 15 years, where what equity do you actually have in a 15-year-old vehicle, all hidden expenses, etc. If we even dig a layer below and you actually look at it, like if you look at a person's income statement, the biggest line item will always be where you live. The second biggest line item will be how you move around. So we believe that there's a massive need in South Africa, especially, knowing that South Africans are extremely car-centric and our public transport isn't as waxed as developed economies. South Africans need access to cars. So we knew there's a massive problem to be solved. How do we go about solving it? There was a fork in the road. We said we can either go ask investors for capital, lend a lot of money on our balance sheet, raise debt, go buy vehicles, rent them out. We know that that is an extremely strenuous operation. We know that that's not our core strength. Our core strength is technology. So we said we want to develop the platform. Now we needed to partner up with a supplier on the back end of the platform. And we went knocking around and we landed up partnering up with the biggest rental company in the country, which is Avis right. And Budget Group. Which is Zeda is the listed entity on the JSE, and we had a simple proposition to them. We said, that South Africans need access to an alternative form of mobility. Yeah. You guys are sitting with all the vehicles. Your core business is short-term rentals. Why don't you ring fence a portion of your fleet? Let us build a long-term product for the South African consumer. And that's essentially how we started. So we wanted to develop Africa's first prepaid pay-as-you-go car subscription plan. Now, what do I mean by prepaid pay-as-you-go? We're quite strong on the belief, and we quite bullish that mobility is evolving into a utility. And what do I mean by that? I mean, just like, you know, electricity, you don't actually need to own the power station in order to consume electricity. Your mobile, you don't need to own the cell phone towers in order to consume data or whatever it is, airtime data, whatever it may be. So we of the idea that the future of mobility will be the same. You don't actually need to own a car to move around on a permanent basis. So with that, having a partner such as Avis to supply us with the fleet, with the vehicles, we're quickly able to kind of innovate and draw from what other, you know, industries have innovated in the past, such as airtime, electricity, whatever it may be, and bring it into mobility. So we created, as I said, Africa's first pay-as-you-go system. So we've created a prepaid system where customers come, they browse our website. Now on our platform, we have, like I said, stock that is generated by Avis. So we have access to 20,000 vehicles. You come and you build a plan around your mobility needs. So you tell us what car you want, how long you want it for, where do you want to collect it. Since we partnered up with Avis, we have access to 76 locations nationwide. You tell us, do you want a baby seat? Do you want a roof rack? How many drivers do you have in your family? You build a package around your mobility needs. Once you build that package, we give you one single monthly fee. That fee includes the car, insurance, maintenance, license renewal, everything besides petrol, traffic fines, and toll fees. So also creating some form of certainty around your mobility expenditure. And we ask you to top up your account upfront. So the first fee will be once or fully refundable deposit plus your first month rental. Mm-hmm. And since you top up the account, you prepay for the account, we have managed to find a workaround around credit underwriting. Why? Because you top up your account. Think about the mobile networks. If you're on airtime, there's no credit underwriting. If you're on a contract, it's a postpaid system, you need to upload bank statements, credit scores, etc.
Yeah.
But we are airtime. We actually call our product drive time. So once you come, you load drive time in your bundle, and we give you access to the asset for 30 days and 3,000 kilometers. As you drive, you log onto our dashboard, you see your bundle depletes. When it comes to 7 days to your bundle depletion, we start pinging you. We're saying, Kieno, you've got 7 days left in your drive time bundle. Do you want to top it up? Now, our plans, because it's a pay-as-you-go, they're month to month. But it's quite interesting to see what we see on our platform. We see that customers want to hold the car for an average of 18 months. So we see that customers getting onboarded onto our platform actually want a long-term mobility fix. They don't want to use our car for a month or two. However, we want to provide the flexibility, meaning that, you know, if something happens to you at your job, you don't have to get tied into a contract. You can just give the car back. If something happens financially, you can downgrade. Now comes December holidays, you want to drive a nicer car, you can upgrade. So I think that flexibility is something that's very core to our business, hence the name FlexClub.
The numbers, right? Because if one goes onto your website or Avis's website, and because I mean you white label this to Avis basically, and you look at the numbers, some people might think, the numbers are pretty high.
Sure.
But I think what's important is to understand what lies behind the numbers. So the cost of actual ownership of a vehicle versus what you are offering. Just take us through that analysis.
Sure. I mean, of course, I think when you compare, I mean, people do tend to kind of look at our prices and be like, oh, that's actually quite expensive. But once you break it down, it's actually not. Why do I mean that? You need to compare apples with apples. So all of our vehicles, since they're part of Avis's fleet, they're less than 12 months old and less than 35,000 kilometers. So essentially relatively new vehicles. I'm not sure if you've looked at new vehicle prices lately. They are through the roof.
Yep.
So, I mean, if you just look at a Polo Vivo, which is our most popular car and, you know, proudly a South African car, it's manufactured here. So a new Polo Vivo costs you 270 grand these days. Now, if you take financing from the bank, if you tie on top of that a maintenance plan, a service plan, and insurance, you're actually reaching out to 100 or 200 Rand more expensive than what we can offer you. If driving a brand new car is not something that you're very interested in, obviously I'm sure you can find a cheaper form of access to that particular vehicle elsewhere. But what we offer customers is an all-inclusive brand new vehicle, which is, which ticks a lot of boxes for a lot of households. Now, if we just kind of break down who are customers, we actually draw quite interesting conclusions from that. So 50% of our base, as rightfully mentioned, they don't have a good credit score or they have thin credit file, meaning that first-time job professionals or whatever it may be, they simply cannot get access to a vehicle from the bank. So they can't own a vehicle and they come onto our platform as an alternative. Interestingly, 20% already own a vehicle and they choose not to further indebt themselves in a quote-unquote depreciating asset. And they say, why should I actually incur further debt and get tied in for another 72 months of vehicle finance, where essentially you don't own the car, you just lease it from the bank under finance. So we have this financially savvy sector of our base that opt to subscribe rather than own. And we see those patterns also playing out in real estate, for example. Like some people choose never to own a home. They're like, why should I own a home? It comes with so many expenses, etc. Why don't I just rent? So there's no stigma around renting a home, and there shouldn't be a stigma around renting a car, because actually a home is an appreciating asset, etc. And the remaining 30% of our base actually love the flexibility. So it's like the digital nomads or the people that don't know where they'll be in the next couple of months, or people that are working like consulting gigs where they don't have a stable source of income. So the flexibility of our product really works well for them.
You also have people who buy silly cars. It's a two-seater, but you've always wanted the two-seater. But now you don't want to go and invest in a brand new Fortuner that's going to cost you 700-800, if not more than that, actually, right? But you can have the experience of the Fortuner. You can do all the off-roading and the camping and whatever you want to. And yes, you prepay, but at the end of the day, the car you really want is the one you pay for. Maybe it's a little sports car, but the family car that gets you from A to B, pick up the kids and do all of that sort of stuff. This car, you can renew on a regular basis. You can swap it out if you need to. And all of that based on a prepayment. So if I look at the value that it offers, it's phenomenal. I do have a question though, is if I work in Cape Town, I live in Cape Town, and I've got a 3-week meeting in Johannesburg, am I able to say, hey, keep my Cape Town car for now, I'd like that Fortuner in Joburg for 3 weeks. Am I able to do that?
Sure. So we have a product called Car Where You Are. So basically, you can get access to the asset wherever you are in the country. It's basically like having a virtual car wherever you are. And basically how it works, if you subscribe, let's say in Cape Town, you'll pick your car from any Avis of your choosing in Cape Town. You'll drive it. Now you have a meeting in Joburg, so you'll drive to Cape Town International Airport. You hand the keys, hop on a flight at OR Tambo. You go to the Avis branch. You collect the keys to the same car. Obviously, it won't be the same car, but it'll be a similar car in Joburg. Drive it around, then hop on. You can drive it to Durban, give the keys back, come back to. So wherever you are, it has the flexibility of having a virtual car, like we say, wherever you are in the country. Which, for the working professional, for the digital nomads, for those types of individuals, I think it makes perfect sense. Where you don't have to park your car in the airport, pay exorbitant parking fines, rent a car wherever you are in the other destination. So there's a lot of perks to it. If I can just double click on a point that you were saying earlier, that we white label our software to Avis themselves. So going back on the narrative that we think mobility is moving more towards a utility, we are of the opinion that this is going to be the future of how South Africans view car ownership. If you look at developed economies such as the UK, US, Australia, the younger generation don't actually aspire to own a car. They just subscribe to the asset. I mean, we're in the subscription era. People don't want to own things anymore. They want to subscribe to them. Why carry the burden of ownership of some things? And we want to bring this. We want to bring this narrative into South Africa. So we were kind of the first ones to introduce this concept in South Africa. And we really want to ride on this whole concept of wow in a car where you can subscribe to a car. And yes, so the platform that we built, we called it a multi-tenant platform, meaning that FlexClub, the brand, it's just one brand that sits on top of our platform and distributes our product. Rightfully so, as you mentioned, Avis themselves are white labeling our platform, and we're calling it Avis Subscriptions at the moment. But our vision is to empower any brand, any direct-to-consumer brand that wants to now start offering an innovative mobility solution to their customer base. We can reskin, whether it's through APIs or white label our platform for them, and get them up and running within a couple of weeks to start offering their own client base an alternative to mobility ownership, which we believe that just like there's embedded financing in some of the businesses, there's embedded value-added services, so you can start buying airtime from a bank. A lot of the financial corporates are now starting to have their own MVNOs, the mobile virtual network operator, building their own mobile networks. Why couldn't there be a world where big brands are starting to operate their own mobility networks? So that's kind of like where we're super bullish on. And our platform is trying to empower more and more brands to get our product into more and more hands.
I love this though, because even as a business person myself, I know we spoke about individuals, but I'm sure if a business prepays, they can get the vehicle. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're putting the money down, right, you have the use of the vehicle. And as a matter of fact, it's a tax write-off. There's a lot of interesting things, but I'm even thinking about this internationally. So I go to Dublin, Ireland regularly. When I get to Ireland, not that I necessarily want to drive on those one-ways, but I'd have the option potentially as this business grows or across the continent to be able to utilize one payment, but get a car anywhere. I mean, that is the type of vision I see for it. I don't know if that's the same vision you see for your own business.
For sure. I mean, we kind of like toy and play around with the idea that we actually are a closed loop mobility wallet, meaning that all our integrations actually into Avis US, meaning that to the mothership in the States. So we can essentially power up any Avis around the world and get integrated into their stock, and then try to find distribution within that country. So rightfully so. I mean, we are aggressively pursuing geographical expansion just because we believe we can power it relatively easily, and really leverage off the masters of fleet management, which are the car rental companies, i.e. Avis, to power up a much better and more efficient product. Now, if you look, like I said, at the developed markets, a lot of them have like car subscription businesses already up and running. But they're all leveraging they all bought cars into their own ecosystem, managing their own fleet. No one can compete with the big guys. So just the fact that we have partnered and integrated into the big guys gives us a big advantage. And our vision is to have this geographical wallet where you top up wherever you are and get access to an asset wherever you are in the world. Obviously ambitious, but it's something to wake up and roll our sleeves and fight every day.
Nothing wrong with ambition. Nothing wrong with that at all. Idan, so this is a success story. You've been growing very nicely month on month as well. I know at some stage when I spoke to you, it was 80% per month. And of course, that plateaus out. But this could not have been as easy as it sounds, right? So let's maybe just very briefly, if you can talk about one or two of the headaches that actually led to you finding this model and actually executing on this model that you currently have.
When we first started, it was a postpaid system, and it didn't go smoothly as we expected, and we had to kind of and we were actually quite worried, but we quit our jobs and went all in on this thing, and then kind of had to find an innovation and what they call a pivot. And that's where we came with this prepaid
Love it.
product, and that only launched in June because we started business in Feb 24, and only in June we launched this prepaid, which kind of like changed our business. So a lot of headaches still to today. There's a ton of headaches. A lot of things go wrong, especially as as the business grows. There's a lot more customers. There's a lot more stakeholders. There's a lot more supplier issues. There's a lot more things, but I mean, it's just part of running any business, right? There'll always be headaches and there'll always be things breaking. I think how you react to those things and how resilient you are, that kind of separates the true jockeys from the ones that just give up.
Idan, what a pleasure. We don't have an hour to do this interview. I think it's a great introduction to what you do as a business. I think we had to, and I think it's important for us, for any founder out there to know it might look simple when you start, but you need to have the right support, the right people, the tenacity to be able to push through the times, especially when they don't look pretty good. So well done to you and the team for doing that. It's just a pleasure having you on Innovate Africa, and that's really what it's all about, right? It's about sharing stories like FlexClub, Idan, the good work him and his team have done to actually pivot and turn this into a thriving business that investors can certainly look forward to. I'll see you on Innovate Africa next week.